Kunja Bihari Jaya Ramadava Gopi Janavalava Girivaradari Yasoda Nandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Bhaktivedanta Samskara Prabhupada Ki Jai Namachara Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sago Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasti Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopika Shama Kunda Radha Koti Giti Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Gang Jamuna Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Go Premanandi All glories to Sam of the devotees, all glories to Sam of the devotees, all glories to Sam of the devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswata Deve Gauravani Prajarane Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Paschatyaresha Tarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasudi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 11 Chapter 2 Verse 50. Nakama karma bijanam Yasa chetasi sambhava Vasudevaika nilaya Savai Bhagavatottamaha. Never, kama, of lust, karma, fruit of work, bijanam, or of material hankerings, which are the seed of fruit of activity. Yasya, of whom, chetasi, in the mind, sambhava, chance to arise, Vasudeva eka nilaya, one for whom the Supreme Lord Vasudeva is the only shelter. Sa, he, vai, indeed, Bhagavata Uttama, is a first-class devotee. Translation: one who has taken exclusive shelter of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva becomes free from fruitive activities which are based on material lust. In fact, one who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord is freed from even the desire to enjoy material sense gratification. Plans for enjoying sex life, social prestige, and money cannot develop within his mind. Thus, he is considered Bhagavatottama, a pure devotee of the Lord on the highest platform. Purport: according to Srila Sridhar Swami, this verse describes the behavior of a devotee of the Lord. The activities of a pure devotee are devoid of material envy, false elation, delusion, and lust. According to the Vaishnava commentators, the word bijanam in this verse refers to vasana, or deeply rooted desires, which gradually fructify in the form of activities for which the living entity becomes subject to reactions. Thus, the compound word kama, karma, bijanam indicates the deep-rooted desire to lord it over the material world through the enjoyment of sex pleasure and the expansions of sex pleasure mentioned in the Bhagavatam as griya, kshetra, sut apta vittai. That is, a beautiful residential building and ample land for producing sumptuous food to fill the belly, as well as children, friends, social contacts, and a large bank balance. All of these material items are essential for completely forgetting that one is an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, as stated in the Bhagavatam, janasya moho yam aham mameti, intoxicated by these objects of material illusion, the conditioned soul becomes madly convinced that he is the center of the universe and that everything in existence has been created only for his personal sense gratification. Whoever obstructs such illusory enjoyment becomes immediately his enemy and subject to be killed. Because of this bodily concept of life and the shackles of illusion, the whole world is being violently shaken by conflict arising from envy and lust. The only possible solution is to accept the leadership of the Lord's pure devotees who are described here. A popular expression used to justify democratic government is power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Such homilies may be valid on the material platform, but it is specifically mentioned here that a pure devotee of the Lord who has completely taken shelter of the Lord's lotus feet cannot even consider taking part in material envy and sense gratification. His mind remains perpetually clear and sober, and he is always aware of the ultimate good of every living entity. The Krishna consciousness movement is strenuously endeavoring to inform the Earth's suffering living entities of the serious need for a brain in human society. A brain racked by fever cannot give proper directions, and if the so-called thinkers of society are burning with selfish desires, they are no better than feverish, delirious brains. Delirious governments are gradually destroying all traces of happiness in human society. Therefore, it is the duty of Vaishnava preachers to act on the platform of Bhagavatottama so they can give clear guidance to humanity without being corrupted or even slightly attracted by the material opulence that may be offered to a saintly person. All intelligent human beings who are unable to take directly to the process of bhakti yoga should at least be sufficiently educated to recognize the first-class devotee of the Lord and accept his guidance. In this way, human society can be very nicely organized so that not only all human beings, but even the animals, birds, and trees can make advancement in life and gradually go back home, back to Godhead for an eternal life of bliss and knowledge. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has emphasized that those seriously interested in achieving the perfection of Krishna consciousness must live in a community of Vaishnavas. Srila Prabhupada has also mentioned several times in his literature that it is not possible to achieve the stage of perfect Krishna consciousness unless one accepts the shelter of pure devotees by living in the Krishna conscious communities being established all over the world by the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has emphasized that this does not mean that spiritual life is restricted only to those celibate students who can live within a temple compound. Devotees in the Grihastha order that of a spiritual family life can also take shelter of the Vaishnava community by regularly attending temple functions. Those who are living in family life should daily see the deity of the Supreme Lord, chant his holy names in his personal presence, accept the remnants of food offered to the deity, and hear learned discourses on Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Any householder who regularly takes advantage of these spiritual facilities and follows the regulated principles of spiritual life, namely no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, and no intoxication, is to be considered a bona fide member of the Vaishnava community. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, those who remain inimical to the devotional service of the Lord are to be considered lifeless puppets in the hands of the illusory energy of the Lord. Translation: one who has taken exclusive shelter of the Supreme Lord, Vasudeva, becomes free from fruitive activities which are based on material lust. In fact, one who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord is freed even from the desire to enjoy material sense gratification. Plans for enjoying sex life, social prestige, and money cannot develop within his mind. Thus, he is considered Bhagavatottama, a pure devotee of the Lord on the highest platform. So, again, this is first described in the highest devotee, the Uttam devotee. But we can understand that this is not the primary characteristic, simply to be free of lust, etc. Because the Mayavadi could also be free of lust and karma, etc., if he destroys all of his gross and subtle bodies, etc. So this is, we can say, a secondary characteristic. Nevertheless, it's also a favorable characteristic in the sense that it can be, we can say, we can easily distinguish him from a materialist by this quality. And, of course, in dealing with the material world, then he has ideal conduct. So this purport has mentioned all of the problems of people in the material world, the leaders and the people in general, because they're all self-centered. And this causes all the problems in the material world. So the devotee is, Uttama devotee particularly, is beyond that. Of course, the counter characteristic here is the Uttam devotee generally doesn't even associate with anybody in the material world. So he may preach, but that's more of an exception than a rule. So therefore, he's not going to head the government or do anything like that, which is suggested here that the Uttama devotees would be the leaders of society and head the government. But generally, they're so absorbed in the Lord that they don't see anything except prema. So most of them wouldn't take part in such activities. Rather, they'd be off in a holy dham, chanting the holy name and discussing Bhagavatam with the devotees. In any case, along with devotional service, we know that karma and the seed of karma, the bija, that is desire, and the root of that, which is called avidya, ignorance, are all destroyed by the process of bhakti. Of course, it may be a gradual process, but it can also happen very suddenly. So we see that Ajamil, in 1 second, had all of his karmas destroyed. And he wasn't even a devotee. He simply uttered the name Narayana, and all of his karmas were gone. Of course, that doesn't mean that all of his seeds of karma were gone, or seeds of desire were gone, or his ahankara were gone. They definitely weren't, but at least the karma was destroyed simply by accidentally chanting the name of the Lord. So that is used to illustrate the fact that if one does intentional devotional service favorable to the Lord, how much more effect you would have in eradicating karmas, eradicating the seed of karmas, and eradicating ignorance, etc. Still, that is also a secondary characteristic. Now, it's the first characteristic mentioned among the 6 characteristics of bhakti, special characteristics mentioned in the Nectar Devotion, but it's not the ultimate characteristic. It's just one side effect. So the devotee develops good qualities. Again, that's a secondary effect. So the primary effect is he develops prema. And he even controls the Lord by that. So that's the ultimate effect. The 6th quality is Krishna Karshani, that he attracts the Lord. So that's the main quality. And the 5th quality is that he has very condensed bliss, feeling of bliss in relation to the Lord. So those are the most outstanding qualities of a devotee, but they only manifest in prema, which would be in the Uttama Bhakta also. So the Uttama Bhakta would naturally manifest the lower qualities like kleshagni, that is destruction of karma, desires, and ahankara, etc., avidya, which it starts in sadhana bhakti itself. But it is not perfected there. So it is said that the first 2 qualities manifest in sadhana bhakti, that is kleshagni and subhada, destruction of karmas and ahankara, and bestowal of good spiritual qualities. And the second 2 qualities manifest in bhava, that is considering liberation to be insignificant and being very rarely achieved. And then the last 2 qualities manifest in prema, that is condensed bliss and attracting Krishna. So when we come to prema, then it manifests all 6 of those qualities in full. And sadhana bhakti manifests the first 2, but not fully. So he destroys karma, etc., but he doesn't destroy ahankara completely. And in bhava stage, then ahankara gets destroyed. So sadhana begins the process of kleshagni, or destruction of all suffering, but it doesn't complete the process. So in bhava itself, there's said to be some vigna, or obstacle there. And therefore, even in bhava, it is possible to fall from that position. So the only completely pure level is prema. And then prema manifests kleshagni perfectly and subhada perfectly, and the qualities that are in bhava as well, plus the qualities in prema. So all 6 qualities are manifested within prema in the complete form. So that first quality is here, kama, karma, bija. Those things are all are completely eradicated in the Uttama devotee, or the Prem Bhakta. But we find even in the person doing sadhana bhakti, to some degree, this annihilation of karma, etc., is taken place. In the case of Ajamil, all of his karmas got destroyed, past, present, future, and he wasn't even a devotee. So, though this is, we say, the perfect state of destroying all your karmas and bijas, etc., and ignorance are in prema, still, even for the person doing sadhana bhakti, that is the madhyamadhikari, to some degree this effect is also there. So the madhyama devotees are in a better position than the other people in the material world, because the other people in the material world are completely affected by all of this karma and bija, etc. If anyone aspires to be a politician, it would have to be the Madhyama rather than the Uttama. Of course, it may happen also. We see Yudhisthira, Uttama devotee, is king of the world, but he's a Nitya Siddha and it's for pastimes. And so generally the sadhakas in the material world are not on that level. So generally they're just trying to enter into the spiritual realm. But anyway, the Madhyamas could or would more likely act on this level of guiding the people of the world by setting a good example of being free of desire, etc. So, here it talks about the bija, or the seed of karma. So when we, of course, karma itself, we can refer to the reactions to our acts, sinful acts or punya acts, and that gives either suffering or enjoyment in some future lifetime. So that's generally what we use when we use the word karma. So nobody likes the sinful effects, that is the suffering, and we try to avoid that as much as possible. But if we've done sinful activities in past lifetimes, then it's unavoidable that we will get these results sometime in some lifetime. We're going to get those bad results. Even if we try to avoid them, we generally get those bad effects. So if one is free from karma, that's considered to be very rare. It is almost an impossible task because we have unlimited karmas for future lifetimes already stored up for us. Plus we have the activities of the karmas of this lifetime to expend until the end of our life. So the future ones are called the aprarabdha ones, and the ones of this life we can say are the prarabdha and the bija. Those that are manifested now are called the prarabdha, and those that are going to manifest tomorrow or the next day we call the bija. They're almost ready to fructify, and sometime in this lifetime they'll fructify. And then we have the ones in future lifetimes, that's all aprarabdha. Untraceable, we don't even know what they are. So there's uncountable karmas, and it's very difficult to destroy all those karmas. It's just difficult to destroy one karma, what to speak of unlimited karmas all going in the future. So it's a difficult task to try to do that. Nevertheless, the jnanis and the yogis attempt this, and they can succeed after great difficulty, and they can get liberation. Of course, even that is not achieved on their own. It is with the little bhakti and the mercy of the Lord, so they can't do it completely on their own. But with that process, along with the little bhakti, they can eventually destroy those karmas. But it is a very long, drawn-out process for them to do that. And along with that, then they have to destroy not only the karmas, but the seed of karma, which is the desire. So we have all sorts of desires, either positive or negative. Desire to enjoy or desire to avoid something. So the desire to avoid something may take the form of hatred. So we have iccha and dvesha, desire and hatred. Desire to enjoy the things we like, and hatred of those things which will prevent us from getting our enjoyment or cause us pain. So our whole life is governed by that, and if we're identifying with the material body. As said in Bhagavad Gita, it's iccha and dvesha. These are the two polarities that guide us in our activities of this lifetime and create more and more karma for us. So due to our desire or our hatred, we do activities. Those activities, of course, give an immediate result, and they give karma in the future. Every act will give some karma. So in that sense, the desires or the hatred are called the bija, or the seed of karma. Of course, we find that the activities themselves give rise to results in this lifetime. I desire to pass an exam, so I study and I pass the exam. So that's a result I get now. That's not the karma. The karma would be the activities I do when I study, which may be either sinful or pious, and that will cause some future counter situation in a future life. That's the karma. So we get response, or we say reactions in this lifetime in terms of, or results in this lifetime in terms of our efforts. We don't turn that karma normally. And along with that, we develop more desires. Because each result we get, we register that in our mind, and we compare it to past experiences, and then we make a judgment. Oh, that was very good, or that was very bad. And if it's very good, then say, oh, I will do this. I'll develop this desire. And if it was very bad, I don't like that, and we develop a hatred. So within this lifetime itself, we're developing new desires and new hatreds based upon the experiences we get in this lifetime when we do activities. So we're constantly generating those desire and hatreds, or those vasanas, or those bijas. So it is very difficult to destroy karmas, and it's also very difficult to destroy the bijas, those desires, because we're constantly observing and experiencing things in the world, and based on that, and then we develop new desires, and sooner or later the desires have to turn into action. Okay? So not only karmas are difficult to destroy, but the bija, or the desires, very, very difficult to destroy those. So of course the jnanis and the yogis strive to control the mind and the senses and whatnot. One method is isolate yourself and don't see things and don't hear things and whatever. Just stop your senses from working. Live in a cave or something where there's minimum of sense stimulation, etc. So that they can try to do that. And of course, then they meditate and they try to concentrate within. So that's the whole yoga process, etc. But difficult to do in the embodied state, because the senses want to be active, the mind wants to be active. So difficult to really control completely. So behind that is what is the cause of the desires? Avidya. Ignorance, which sounds a little bit philosophical or abstract. Desires come from ignorance, but what that means is that because we do not understand our true position, we develop these desires. In other words, we identify ourselves as an individual who deserves enjoyment. That's our ignorance, which means we're not aware of the Lord, who is the actual enjoyer. He is the real bhokta. He's the real enjoyer, and we are bhogya, to be enjoyed by the Lord. But we don't understand that, and we're trying to be the bhokta, we're trying to be the enjoyer. That's our ignorance. So it consists of two things: rejection of the existence of the Lord, and establishing ourselves as the center of the universe, or as the enjoyer. So that's the ignorance. So this leads to ahankara, which is false identity, who are ignorant of that we're the Atma and we think we're the body. And then based on when we think we're the body, then we develop all these different desires in terms of the body. This is good for my body, that is bad for my body. So the desire stems from that ignorance, where the jiva himself neglects the Lord's existence and rejects that, and establishes himself as the enjoyer. That is something that takes place in the jiva. That's his ignorance. In spite of the fact we say that the jiva is chit, etc., it is covered. He's certainly conscious, but his consciousness is completely distorted because he doesn't recognize the Lord. So, therefore, he is in ignorance, in spite of the fact of being chit. So, the avidya, or the ignorance, is the cause of the desire, or the bija, and that is the cause of the activities, and that is the cause of the karma, or the suffering in the world that we get. So, in jnana and yoga, they try to get rid of all of this, and therefore in jnana they say avidya is the cause, ignorance is the cause. Let's get rid of avidya by vidya, knowledge. So we have proper knowledge, then we can destroy the ignorance. So instead of thinking of myself as the enjoyer, I say I'm not the enjoyer. And instead of identifying with the body, we identify ourselves as Atma or Brahman. that which is fully conscious, etc. So the ignorance is destroyed by the knowledge. That, of course, is very philosophical. So just meditating, I am not the body, I am the soul, doesn't seem to be so productive. So therefore we also have sadhanas to go along with that, such as detachment, vairagya, mona, silence, and all these other things. And then we have a whole process called yoga, which is a physical process of controlling the mind and concentrating on atma, etc., and actually destroying all the functions of material consciousness. And when that happens, that is, we destroy it, we stop all desires, we stop the ahankara from functioning, etc. What's left? Consciousness, atma. So atma is aware of itself at that point. So that's the yoga position of samadhi. Therefore, they can accomplish this, but it's a very difficult task. So they destroy the karmas, the desire, and the ignorance, ultimately, and they can get that peaceful existence of Atma. But the devotee doesn't really strive for that at all. He is striving not for removing ignorance as such, but for and destroying karmas, but simply by recognizing the Lord, it takes place. As I said, the ignorance, we define the ignorance as ignorance of the Supreme Lord. So we recognize the Supreme Lord, we destroy the ignorance. For the Jnani, the ignorance is ignorance of that I am Brahman or I am Atma. For us it is understanding we are the servant of the Lord. For the Jnani and the Yogi, generally they also annihilate the idea of the self, because that's also related to ahankara and ignorance, etc. So only Brahman exists at a certain point. But the devotee does not do that. The sense of I remains. It's not the false ego I, but the sense of I exist remains in relation to the Supreme Lord. I am the eternal servant of the Lord. So it's not that the I is destroyed, but the I is positioned in another relationship. Not that I am the enjoyer, but I am the enjoyed, and the Lord is the enjoyer. I am the servant of the Lord. So that is what bhakti is. The very definition of bhakti is to anukulena krishnanosilanam, cultivate, the jiva cultivates a favorable relationship of love with the Lord. So I develop affection for the Lord. So the I is not destroyed, but we cultivate a relationship of love with Supreme Lord. So that is the very nature of bhakti. So when we do that, automatically karma gets destroyed, desires get destroyed, and avidya gets destroyed. How does it take place? It takes place because the very root of vidya is automatically destroyed, and that's what we're concentrating on. And how do we do that? Not by saying, okay, I'm destroying the ahankara, etc., but rather we affirm our relationship with the Lord. I am the eternal servant of Krishna. So that destroys the ahankara and the avidya and the desires and the karmas. If we take the root of the tree and chop out the root, then the tree dies. So if we take out that avidya root and replace it with I am the servant of Krishna, then automatically karmas die, desires die, and the avidya dies. Everything dies. We get to the root, it all finishes. So that's what bhakti does. It gets to the very root of material existence and wipes that out. By its very, the sarupa of bhakti is to do that, to wipe out that root of avidya and replace it with the opposite idea, that I am the eternal servant of Krishna. So it automatically, all this kama, karma, bija destruction takes place automatically through the process of bhakti, by affirming a relationship with the Supreme Lord. So this is preferable to jnana and yoga, which try to destroy karma and ignorance, etc., because we don't have to negate the I, and we can engage the body and the senses without trying to suppress them at all times. So we simply engage them favorably in the Lord's service, and then instead of creating more karma and more ignorance and more desires, we end up destroying the desire and the ignorance and the karmas. So this is the process recommended for everyone if they want the highest goal, engage in devotional service. So, of course, that is mentioned here also. The negative part of destroying all the karmas, etc., is there. But then the positive point, Vasudeva Eka Nilaya, that's the bhakti part, that he's completely dedicated to the Supreme Lord. And what is that dedication? That means he has full love of the Supreme Lord. It's not an intellectual relationship, it's an emotional relationship, but it's not material emotion. It's the jiva's emotion. The jiva's experience, the jiva's feelings for the Lord. He's completely dedicated to the Lord, fixed in the Lord out of great affection for the Lord. And consequently, all this other stuff takes place. So such a person who has fixed himself in the Lord displays this quality of complete, he's got completely beyond all the effects of the material world. Not because that's his goal, but simply because of his absorption in the Supreme Lord.
You see that in the Lord's creation, everything is just a transformation of energy. The Atma, which is in a pure state of energy, is covered by Maya, yet another energy of the Lord. All these are the Lord's energies only. Like the Atma, does the other energies also have defects of self-aggrandizement and the intention not to serve the Lord?
Well, it doesn't, because it's unconscious. We can't have any desire. So the Achit Shakti or the Bahiranga Shakti has no consciousness, so it has no desire at all. It's completely inert. And the spiritual energy of the Lord is never under Maya at all. It is a Sarup Shakti of the Lord. It's his internal energy. So it never is in touch with the material energy at all, never influenced by anything. It is only the jiva. He's the only spiritual energy, we can say, or conscious energy, which can be affected by Maya. And therefore he's called Tatashta, or borderline. But the Chit Shakti cannot be influenced. It's intrinsic to the Lord. And it's that which develops his form, qualities, activities, his bliss, etc. So it's never touched by Maya at all.
And we see that Atma, being part and parcel of the Lord himself, has that quality of compassion ingrained in it. But this compassion, is it first deployed on the self itself or for the others?
Well, we can. It's not necessarily ingrained in the jiva, because in ignorance we have people who are cruel. They don't have any compassion at all. And if one enters into Brahman, there is no compassion also. So the jiva in a neutral state, he's just beyond the material world. So the compassion is a quality of the Supreme Lord, and it's reflected in the devotees of the Supreme Lord, who develop similar qualities to the Lord. The Brahmavadis and Mayavadis strive to get rid of all qualities. So therefore, any quality of compassion actually is bad, because it binds you to the material world. As we know, if you do humanitarian work, you get bound to the material world. So the real Mayavadi will completely reject all of that also.
But the attempt to save themselves from Maya itself is not a compassion on the self.
Well, generally we say compassion is not for the self, it's for somebody else, isn't it? We say that's selfish if we were working only for ourselves. I'm doing something for myself, then we say it's selfish, not compassionate.
then nobody will be doing something.
What's that?
To protect or to serve the Lord, the self, that sort of thought only gives us surrender. Then we are compassionate on our own self.
Well, if we have self-interest in bhakti, then it is not anya abhilasha shunya. Now, of course, when we do sadhana bhakti, it's not perfect, but at least we're not explicitly asking, I chant your name because I want this for myself. So we're not asking for things. Yeah, so that's for the Lord, not myself. Let me please the Lord, not please myself. So the act of serving the Lord is not so that we can get some pleasure, but the Lord can get some pleasure. That's what service means in the true sense.
How to understand these two terms you used, this bhogya and bhokta? Bhogya and bhokta, enjoyer and enjoyed, to be enjoyed.
Yeah.
How to understand this? Because see, in the material world, living entities, even the devotees, sometimes we feel that even they also enjoy in relation to Krishna. Yeah. So how to understand this?
Well, of course, when we say the word bhokta and enjoyer, we don't take it in the negative sense. It means an experiencer. So Krishna is the experiencer, and we are the experienced by Krishna. And from our point of view, we try to give enjoyment to Krishna, so he becomes the bhokta. Yeah, so from our point of view. From Krishna's point of view, it's not that I like to enjoy everything and you are the object of my enjoyment. That's not his psychology. But that from our point of view, we think, okay, Krishna is the one object of giving enjoyment like that, and I'm simply at his will. So in that sense, we're the bhogya, or we're the enjoyed, or whatever like that. We also say Prakriti and Purusha, whatever like that, the male and the female, or whatever. So he's the enjoyer, and we are the enjoyed in that sense. Now, there is enjoyment, and we even see that expressed, that the devotee is happy, the devotee has experiences of bliss, etc. Obviously he does. But in serving the Lord, that's not his primary motive, that I want to get blissful, therefore I serve the Lord. His primary motive is, let me give joy and bliss to the Lord. And then automatically he gets his bliss. But we know that it is described by Jiva Goswami that the jiva, the nature is to be happy, or to strive for happiness anyway. That's that, and we do that in the material world also. But the way we do it is not by thinking of ourselves, but by thinking of the Lord and his welfare. Then we get our bliss. So it's not directly, I want to be blissful, therefore I try to get blissful. The only way we can do that is by channeling that to the Supreme Lord. Then we get our bliss.
Before coming to Krishna consciousness, many people suffer. So people think that, okay, if I go to Krishna, take up Krishna consciousness, I think I'll be happy.
Yeah, so I said, so it's a natural desire for the jiva to be happy. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's natural. And of course, the only thing is that one, we distinguish spiritual from material happiness. We have to distinguish that. And so the goal of bhakti is not to get materially happy, but spiritually happy. But when we define spiritual happiness, it's always in relation to the Lord's happiness. So that's the trick there, that the happiness for ourselves actually means give happiness to the Lord, then we get satisfied. Then we get our happiness.
Maharaj, you explained these 6 qualities of the bhakti, that 2 manifest in sadhana, 2 manifest in bhava, and 2 manifest in, 4 manifest in bhava, and 6 manifest in prema. But we see even in sadhana bhakti, when one performs the sadhana bhakti also, even he also experiences some kind of bliss.
Well, we don't call it bliss, we call it bhakti sukha. It's not the bliss, because bliss we can say it manifests in bhava because of it directly experiencing the Lord and seeing the Lord. So in sadhana we don't directly see the Lord and don't directly serve him, so therefore we don't call that bliss. But it is a happiness, there's some contentment, a spiritual happiness, but it's not of the intensity that we call it bliss.
But then that only, that bhakti sukha inspires the devotees to take up more bhakti.
Yeah. So eventually it transforms into bliss when we see the Lord directly in bhava.
Can you say that this is like a shadow of the bhava?
Yeah.
Which is the root of the karma, and you said that ignorance is actually the root of bijam, the desires. So Maharaj, we see when somebody comes to Krishna consciousness, very quickly these points are eradicated. The ignorance is very quickly removed, because we know Krishna is Supreme Lord and we are supposed to serve him.
Yeah.
These things, the ignorance is very quickly destroyed when somebody comes in touch with the Krishna consciousness. So technically that means that very quickly we should also be free from the bijam. And of course karma also.
Yeah. Well, as I said, generally the karmas can get destroyed, as in the case of Ajamil, quite quickly, and if we don't have any aparadhs, even by accidental bhakti. But the desires and then the ignorance will take longer to destroy. So even into, it said that ahankara is finally destroyed in bhava stage. So before that there is a trace. Of course it's getting destroyed, it's in the process of getting destroyed, so it becomes weaker and weaker and weaker as we go on. But it's not destroyed at the very beginning of bhakti, otherwise everybody would experience the Lord in sadhana rather than in bhava. So there's a gradual progress to bhava, and when the ahankara gets destroyed and say the karmas are all gone, then we can actually see the Lord. The bhakti is manifested very, very strongly.
So Maharaj, can we understand that when it comes to destroying of karma, it is there's not much effort from the devotee side, because he's just performing devotional service, and without his much knowledge all the karmas are destroyed. But to change the bijam, to destroy bijam, there has to be a very conscious effort from devotee side, based on the knowledge that he has to consciously destroy that.
The main effort is through the bhakti itself, because bhakti automatically destroys, kleshagni is the effect. And the kleshagni, or the destruction of klesha, consists of the avidya and the bija and the karma. So it automatically goes when we practice bhakti, then all of that becomes less until in bhava maybe it's 0.1% or something, and prema is 0. So then, like that, it happens. So in that sense it's not a conscious effort, it's a conscious effort to do the bhakti itself. However, we also know that we do have some minimum restrictions, like 4 regulated principles, and don't do this, and don't display anger, don't be controlled by lamentation, etc. That's one of the angas of bhakti also. So there's some like minimum, we say, restrictions we try to follow in our progress of bhakti.
So can we say, Maharaj, that during the sadhana time, a devotee has to consciously take a call, because sadhana time his heart is not fully pure, so he always has a choice, either to enjoy or to serve the Lord.
Yeah.
So he has to make that conscious choice during that time, till the time that choice becomes spontaneous for him.
Yeah. Well, sadhana basically means that when we get to nishta, then it's not so conscious because it becomes fixed already, and then ruchi is more and more positive. But when anishta, then definitely we're at war more or less with Maya, and sometimes Maya is trying to take over also. So when we get nishta, then we can say it's more or less a steady state. But before that, yes, there is that more danger at that point.
A few questions here. Regarding the ignorance that is destroyed by bhakti, as devotees we hear that we are servant of the Lord and the Lord is the supreme enjoyer. But yet the desire to enjoy crop up again and again. Is it because that we don't have faith on the knowledge, and that as we progress our faith on the fact that we are servant increases?
Yeah. Well, as I said, it's a gradual process in most cases. So though we accept on one level, with faith, we accept, okay, the bhakti scriptures, conclusion of the scriptures, and we agree to practice and we don't argue with it. It doesn't mean that the Atma itself is completely convinced. If he were, then he would be in prema. But he's not. So we have, with faith, when we have 0.1% something, and we have a little attraction for the Lord, maybe 1% attraction for the Lord when we start bhakti. But then we have so many other desires, and so many, the soul itself has still got its material attachments. So it's not all destroyed immediately. It takes time to do that, because it's a heavy covering on the jiva. But in comparison to jnana and yoga, it's much quicker.
And then also, initially there is so much of enthusiasm to practice pure devotion, but then sometimes we see that there are examples of devotees where they get engaged in other activities. So there seems to be some problem there.
Yeah. Well, that's what we call the anishita stage. And it's called utsahamahi in Madhurya Kadambini, over-enthusiasm. So in the beginning they're very proud and very enthusiastic, but it's a little bit false in one sense. It's not completely fixed, so it's just like I say, maybe material also in one sense, material confidence or something is manifesting at that stage. So it's not really genuine enthusiasm.
Can you also see the role of some
Well, if there is aparad, then the whole process becomes much slower, or it becomes more difficult. And if there's no aparad, we can say it's relatively easier and quicker in advancement and the effects of bhakti.
Yeah, if ahankara is destroyed only in bhava, then he is practicing trinadapi sunichenla only superficial, that is abhasa.
What's that?
If ahankara is destroyed only in bhava,
Yeah.
then he is practicing trinadapi sunichena only superficial, that is abhas.
Well, we can say that it's gradually destroyed. It's not that suddenly it gets destroyed and up until bhava it was 100% ahankara. So it's a gradual destruction, like karmas get gradually destroyed or desires get gradually destroyed. So ahankara also weakens and weakens and weakens. So therefore we cannot say it's a false or a abhas only. And you can say it's an abhas in the sense it's not 100% manifested, and it's actually only 100% manifested in prema. So the prema bhaktas are the most humble and genuinely humble, and everyone before that is a little bit covered over, we can say. So in that sense it's an abhas, we can say. But nothing really wrong with that. It's not there's an imitation, not that type of abhas like the bhava bhas of the sahajya or something. It's not an imitation.
Next one is like jnani.
We can also say that, see, that humility is also a character, is part of bhakti itself. So as bhakti manifests more, the humility will manifest. And then the bhava, it's a certain amount, and prema, it's 100%. So, like that. Generally don't call it bhava bhas or bhakti abhas also, though, because that means it's impure bhakti, or let's say mixed bhakti or something. When we're not trying to do that, we're trying to do pure bhakti. So we don't use that word in relation to pure bhakti. Well, that's our attempt to be humble, yeah. But of course, yeah, of course we have to use our intelligence. We use our intelligence to read scripture and to follow the rules and regulations. But we don't call that material intelligence, because intelligence following scripture is approved as part of spiritual life. If we don't have intelligence, we can't understand anything about bhakti also. So the human being is higher than the animal because he is intelligent. So we use that intelligence in bhakti, then it is no problem.
Like jnanis meditate that they are not body but soul. Should a devotee meditate, I am servant of Krishna?
Of course.
Or should he meditate on Krishna's rupa, name, nama, lila, guna? Both are slightly different. So which one should a devotee follow?
Both. If we meditate on the qualities but we're not the servant, then essence also meaningless. We can meditate on Krishna as a wonderful form, but if we're not the servant, then we may try to become Krishna instead. So we have to accept our position as being a devotee of the Lord.
Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki